What's up?
What is up, ladies and gentlemen? If you're hearing our voices, guess what?
We back.
We back for another one.
We are here, and we have an amazing guest today. Her name is Annie Gonzalez, and you can catch her on Vida, Good Girls, Shameless, Pink Collar Crimes, most recent credits, Hentified, and
East of the Mountains.
East of the Mountains, you guys, we want to hear more about. And we're so excited to have her today. She's also a mental health advocate.
Yeah.
So we want to just kind of hear a little bit about you and your journey and how you got into this crazy industry and just how you navigate the waters.
Welcome. How are you doing tonight?
Thank you, beautiful people, for having me.
Of course.
I'm doing great. I'm really happy to be here, and I'm excited to talk to you guys.
This Friday
Thank
night.
you.
This is awesome because some of the guests that we've had, we kind of know from like, I've either auditioned with, or I know them, or I've worked with them, or, you know, it's
Through
like
the
I've-
grapevine.
Yeah, like had conversations. So this is so exciting because we've never met, and we're so excited to get to know more about you.
Oh, cool.
So yeah,
That's right. And so my first question is, did you see the football lights coming in?
I did not see the football lights, and now I want to see them.
It's time. It's time. We're right across the street from a high school.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Friday Night Lights.
Yeah, so we might hear
that's
drums.
why I was like, what football?
I
We'll
know.
see.
I was like, that, I don't know.
It might get crazy up in here. We'll see. The
Yeah.
band might come join us. I
No,
don't know.
we're so close. She actually had mentioned that she lived almost like close.
I literally lived in the apartment complex next to the football lights.
Really?
Yep.
What a small world.
I
I'm
know.
telling you guys, if you're hearing this, you're not from LA. LA can be small.
It is small.
Yeah. And she even lives close, like 0.8 miles from here, like
Oh,
less
that's
than a mile.
awesome.
It was magical.
Did you see the new Metro bikes?
I did.
There's one like right blocks from us.
It
Like we
look-
can,
It looks so cool.
that would be so cool. It's such a good invention. The only thing that we were talking about is like, really, how clean can you keep them? You know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, and with a Virgo, she's
Yeah.
not doing it. She's not doing
I
it.
was like, where's my hand sanitizer?
Yeah. We were talking right before we got started. We were talking Nadia's Virgo, and she and a friend were talking about the different ways that she aligns with some of those personality traits, and so that's what comes
Yeah, I
up.
was like, I make lists for my lists.
Yeah.
Yes. What a Virgo. I love a good. See, I'm a Scorpio. I'm really into astrology as well. Like I have it tattooed on me, like my star sign.
Oh, no
what do you
way.
have? What
Can
do
I
you have
see?
tattooed?
Yes.
Nice.
I'm a Scorpio.
So what's that?
Scorpio is a water sign. It's like October
Okay, yes.
23rd to November 23rd.
Okay, yes.
Awesome.
My sister's November 20th.
Ooh,
Oh.
she's
Yeah.
a Scorpio.
She's a Scorpio.
Yeah, it's like I kind of know. I don't like follow, but I know mine, and I always find it super fascinating because like I'll read it, and I'm like, oh my gosh, yes, oh my gosh, and then I'll be like, oh my gosh, yes, that's you. It's so crazy.
It's so much fun the deeper you get into it. I love to believe in magic because I feel like it just like lends itself to like enjoying life a little bit more.
Right.
Like
That's
you know,
That's why I love Harry Potter.
you feel me?
Yeah,
Harry
totally.
Potter.
I walk around, I'm like, yeah, life would be better with this.
Can I get a wand too?
You know?
Yes.
So that brings up a good question that just popped in my head. So you used to live closer to that high school.
Mm-hmm.
Have you always been in LA? What's your journey?
Yes, I'm born and raised in East LA.
Awesome.
Yes, grew up. I actually grew up in the industry. I went to a magnet school in West Los Angeles and got into acting when I was about 9 years old.
No way.
Yeah, and I'm like an LA native. So, you know, people say like, yeah, I'm from LA, but they
Yeah.
just have like their mom and dad here and they moved from somewhere else. Like, no, like my whole family is like LA County. So I have family in like Ontario, Chino Hills,
Yeah, girl.
Pasadena, Alhambra, City Terrace. I have, you know, some people in like Long Beach and like the OC. Like we are like LA born and bred. You feel me?
Yeah,
I feel you.
I was born downtown.
Yeah.
So, but we lived near USC till like I was about 4 or 5 because my parents are from Nicaragua,
Ah.
and we moved to San Bernardino, so we took it out to the 909.
Yep.
But
Yeah.
basically, my half family in Reseda and like Canoga Park and kind of in this area. So
And I'm a total transplant.
Where
so,
are you
So
from?
this is my new home, but I'm originally from the Southeast, Alabama.
Oh, wow.
I grew up in, so I was born in Georgia, raised a little bit in Florida, Alabama, moved back to Florida, moved back to Alabama, moved back out here, and now my family's in Tennessee. So
Oh,
all
wow.
over.
A Southern boy.
That's right.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. That's awesome.
From the South, deep
but
down.
now my family's in Florida, so I'm the only one here.
yeah,
Oh,
they moved. So
wow.
they moved out, and so we're basically the only family out here.
Yeah, we got each other and our baby
I
and our
love
dogs.
that. Yeah, and Charlie, duh. And me now. What's up?
Yes.
I-
Yeah, what's
and,
up, girl?
And now we're kind of connected to your family tree. Is that right? For doing a
yes.
podcast,
Yeah,
right?
I feel it. A family is what you make it, okay?
That's
So did
so
you
true.
did you work at a young age, or were you just always interested in the arts? And did you do the whole agent thing at a young age?
It's so I grew up in a family of performers. My mom went to Hollywood High School. She met my
Awesome.
dad there when they were like 16. They became childhood friends, and then had their own little rendezvous and had me. And my dad has been a child actor. So, like
No
he
way.
started off doing movies in Mexico.
Girl, that's
Nice.
awesome.
Yeah, like
That's
4 years old.
crazy.
Oh my god! And my dad is badass. Like one of
That's
my whole
awesome.
dad's side of the family and my mom, some of the most talented, beautiful humans that you'll
Wow.
ever meet. They were a big force in the Chicano community in the 90s. They do a lot of activist work. They're musicians and actors. So I kind of grew up around it.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, but not in it. When I was younger, everybody would, when you go to the mall, these people will stop you and they're like, "You should get your kid into acting." My mom was like, "No, no, no."
We know all about that. She's
Girl. Right? They probably try and do it to you now. You're like, thank you, I'm fine.
yeah. Are you gonna get him in? He looks like a Gerber baby. Is he gonna put him? I'm like, just calm down.
You're like, let him learn how to read.
Let him
Right.
go. Can he walk first? Thanks.
So what happened around 9? So you're going through life. You have the parents who are in it, and then 9 you start.
I first went to meet with my dad's agent at 7.
Awesome.
I had a lazy eye and had all these things. And I remember the agent made a point to say that to me at 7 years old. And my mom was like, no, we're
Yeah.
not doing this. We left, didn't come back until about 2 years later. And my mom was like, "Are you sure you want to do this?" And
Yeah.
I'm like, "Yes, Mom, I want to be an actress. That's all I can think about." I would be in school and I guess the teachers would say that I wasn't paying attention. So my mom would come in and check on me and I'd be daydreaming. And she'd be like, "What are you daydreaming about?" "One day when I'm a famous actress." She's like, "Well, famous actresses need to learn how to read too. So get your ass in them books." And I'm like,
Right? You're like, they need to know how to add, subtract, multiply, divide, and everything else.
Yeah,
But we probably don't.
You
But
got to read
you
your
know what I'm
script
saying.
if you're intending to memorize it, right?
For real, for real.
Awesome.
And then I got an agent, and I remember them saying, this was 9. We went back to the same people, and I had just like a different understanding of what it was. And it's going to be hard. For every 50 no's, there's one yes. Be prepared. My first audition, I booked it.
Yes.
You get it. What was it?
It was Without a Trace.
Nice.
No way.
Yeah. I remember going in, and my mom was like, "How do you think you did?" And I was like, "I got it." I've always had, I feel like the
I love
older
that.
I've gotten, we get away from the discernment we have as a kid of being
Yeah.
like, I understand myself, and so therefore I'm going to express what that is.
Yeah, there's almost like the life experience of learning to second guess yourself isn't there.
Oh my gosh. Yes.
You know?
That gave me a lot of confidence, and I always revert back to those moments when I was a kid that reminds me of like, oh, this is what matters, the
Yeah.
joy of the situation, not the actual product of what I think is going to come of it. Just
Right.
learning to enjoy the process.
That's kind of cool that you kind of had that at such a young age, because I feel like some adults can't even grasp that.
Right.
To be honest.
Yeah, you know what I feel like? I feel like we all are born with that.
Yeah.
We have that just level of.
Agreed.
And I took a 3-day trip recently to Joshua Tree because I felt like I was starting to get really disconnected from that space of myself. Like I couldn't understand what I was feeling and why I
Right.
was feeling it. And so I went
Yeah.
to Joshua Tree, and I had these, just being silent, I had these beautiful epiphanies of like, oh wow, like I already have it. Like I've had it, and I'm looking for it externally, but if I can cry in like a 67 like Corolla, burned down Corolla, I can cry in a new Bentley. Like it doesn't matter. Like I got to be happy right now in myself, or else none of this
That's right.
outward manifestation is going to make a difference into who I am as a person. You know?
Well, because you
That's
don't
right.
change. I think that we have this idea, and we've talked about this kind of before, where it's like we think that our circumstances can dictate our joy or happiness.
Yeah.
And, we think, well, just when this or that. But then, we've talked about like I've had some amazing years as an actress, and even then I was like found myself stressed out and worried about and then so you're not even enjoying that. So it's like learning that art of, like you said, you can be in a Bentley or a 67 Corolla or whatever, and how do you still be content and like trust, because this it's like it can beat your ass. Like this industry can like beat your ass to start to second guess yourself.
Yeah.
Yep.
And was there experience like that? Obviously, you don't have to go too deep, but was there an experience where you had that moment of, like, this experience is making me more self-conscious as an actor, or just life?
I think it was a little bit of both. I mean, growing up, I realized that like I did have an innate talent. I grew up singing, dancing, and acting. So I was kind of always just like in that realm. Like I did it all, and I was it was something that came very natural to me.
Yeah.
So a piece of me always felt like I didn't deserve it. So I always felt the overcompensation of wanting to show that. And it wasn't until I got older, and it's funny, you had mentioned all the credits that I have. Half of those credits while I was doing them, I was so depressed. Right. I was the most fit I'd ever been. I'm booking, I'm doing all these things. And I remember sitting in my trailer on the Shameless set and being like, nothing feels different.
Yeah.
Mm.
And then it hit me. I'm like, nothing is going to feel different until I realize that unless I romanticize everything in my life, I'm going to fall out of love with it.
Right.
What do you mean? Like, what do you mean?
So like romanticizing my walk to the gym.
Right.
Like, like the smallest things. Like I have these legs and I can afford to pay for this gym every single month, and I can walk there and I can either burn my ass out running on the treadmill or just sit there because I can, like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Or
Okay,
even just the little pleasures of being like, I get to live in an apartment with my best friend.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That is awesome.
Versus like either a stranger or somebody that you hate.
You know, just really learning to fall in love with everything so that I didn't, because, you know, I think us as humans, we're the ones that try and like assign a value to something.
Yeah. Right.
Like, I try not to. I realized that in a phone call from my 7-year-old niece saying, hey, can you have a sleepover with me? Versus, you know, them saying, hey, you booked a recurring on Hentified.
Right.
They mean the same thing to me. I cannot put one heavier weight on the other, because then your life gets out of balance and you kind of don't know, you know?
Yes.
Yeah.
And then things that could be amazing are kind of minimized and you're kind of missing the moment. And then when those other things that we think are so glorious, for whatever reason, I think sometimes they still fall short.
Yeah.
It's kind of like you're kind of let down. You're like, I thought this was supposed to be like epic.
Yeah.
And sometimes I think we forget, like, it's still a job.
Exactly.
And I think that's the common thing that we're realizing here. It's like, you know, no matter, I've worked a lot commercially more than theatrically. Mm-hmm. So, but even then, like being on set, working with DPs and first and second ADs, it's like, everything seems so glamorous, but it's a job, and there's a lot of responsibility, and there's a lot at stake in a way. And I think that people that aren't in it, or that aren't, and it's also interesting, like I think that sometimes the less that you work, right? So like when jobs are fewer and far in between, so let's just say you book a job a year, like everything seems so precious.
Right.
And then there's so much weight on that one job, like it's going to be this, and then you sometimes just get there and it's just like not what you expect. You're like sitting in the chair in a trailer for like 6 hours before they even come to you, or whatever, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know.
And that's why I think it's a good lesson, but it's also so important what you were saying about going back to the place where you were doing it for fun. You were doing it because it was just in you to do.
And I think the second that I looked at it like that, like, this is a career. I'm so, and when I say that, you know, I don't put a sign of value, I don't mean that I'm not grateful and I'm not like, oh my God, yay, my dreams are coming true. I definitely feel that. However, I don't make my happiness indicative, because a lot of the job that we do, it's like, yes, you're booked, you're good enough. Right? Seemingly. Like, no, you're not booked, you're not good enough, is what it feels like sometimes.
Yeah,
and then being a woman in the industry, and then being a Latina woman on top of that, there's a lot of things where I feel very misrepresented. Yeah, I'm from the hood, I'm from East LA, but I'm not the stereotype as much as, but I'm also the stereotype. But we don't show the other side of all the dimensions and colors of what we are as a people.
Yeah.
You know, so that was, I remember going into things like that and feeling so disheartened, because I'm from East LA, but I grew up listening to Gene Kelly and Fred Astaire, and I loved musical theater. Yeah. And I like to do English accents and talk like this with my mom. And like, but I could also still like fuck around on the street with like all my homies. You know what I'm saying? Like, and it wasn't a thing. But we don't get to see the duality of that. And so I'm like, I remember even when finding my team and figuring out my mom, I'm so grateful for her. She would always ask me these like prodding questions of like, so you want to be an actress because you want to be famous? And I'd be like, no. She's like, well, that's not a bad thing if that's what you want. She's like, but you have to figure it out. And so I did a lot of soul searching with her at a young age and figuring it out. And I was like, no, I have a voice. And though I'm not represented on TV, doesn't mean that there's other people that aren't like me.
Right.
My story is important.
Right.
I think we need to share this, you know?
That's awesome. And do you find that having a family that not only can identify what you're going through as you're going through your career, but you can also share pieces of what it's like in times of heartbreak, you didn't get the role.
Because they can relate, because they're also actors.
Oh my gosh, yes. Even with my mom, you know, like she's an educator, she's a dance teacher, but she's a creative as well,
That's
you know.
awesome.
And I think we tend, like, everybody understands heartbreak, everybody understands letdown. So it's
sure.
You know, but it is really nice to see them and be like, dang, I get it, mama. Like, you let yourself be so open creatively,
Right?
And it feels hard when someone says no.
Yeah.
But they're so fired too, and they've done so many things that are independent. They're like, do it yourself. Stop
love
crying.
that.
Like, I love my tío. My tío Quetzal, he's like, stop crying about it. Just do it. And I'm like, you're right. You're right.
I love that. I love that. You're like, I will go do it. I will.
Yeah, and that's something that we're learning, you know, like the whole mindset of just go do it. You know, you know, you're talking about your story isn't represented. And in a time where technology is way cheaper, opportunity is seemingly becoming more and more an opportunity. It's actually there now, especially with like Disney Plus coming out and all these streaming services. There's really an opportunity to kind of dive in and run the creative aspect of telling your story. And that's what, you know, we're kind of committing ourselves to, is building our own stories and writing our own work and kind of putting it out there. Is that something that you're interested in? Do you write your own stuff? Do you anything along that line?
Yeah. I've written a couple different, like, episodes for something for myself, and I'm working on trying to figure out how to get that done, and also kind of looking at doing like one woman show. I have a lot of things that I want to do.
Yeah.
It's
Right.
just about focusing them and doing them.
Of course, because then you're also juggling auditions and actually
Yep.
being on set, and then everything else.
Timing
Yeah.
and all that goes into just being an adult, you know?
Yeah. I've really been trusting, though. It's so funny. I feel like the more connected I get to source, or like this higher space of myself, I feel like things just happen in divine order.
Yeah.
And I've been having, I do mantras all the time, and one of my things is everybody around me wants to help me get to the next space of myself. Everybody around me wants to see me win. Our words are spells, you know?
Yeah.
I definitely, we've been talking a lot about the power of words.
Yeah.
And I feel like that words can either build up or tear down. And I think that there's something, I was reading something today that was talking about like how a lot of times we get caught up in our past, and then we kind of think that our past is going to dictate our future. So if you're in that space and all you're focusing on is the past or the things or the struggles of the past, then how are you hoping for a hope for tomorrow or a hope for the future? And I think that it's definitely interesting, because I think, you know, whether we're speaking them out loud or whether we're speaking them to ourselves, like it just inner monologues, I think that there is something about like the power of words and how what we're telling ourselves every day. So if you're telling yourself, you know, people want me to get to the next level, people want to help me, you're kind of just even consciously, subconsciously, like giving people the benefit of the doubt that people are for you, not against you.
Yeah. And it wasn't until I started going to therapy, because I realized I was living a lot in the past and like my former self. And I just remember being in a really dark place for a long time. I struggled with depression and anxiety throughout my whole childhood. Imagine being a child and an actress and as adults, we feel the pressure, but being a kid and being like, I need to do this, I need to do that.
I gotta get it right.
Yeah. Right. And I wasn't until about last year that I decided to like make a leap and go to therapy and actually do it. And instead of living in that space of myself in the past, I was like, there are triggers. What are they? How can I clean this out and better understand them and look at them and not be afraid of them? Because that's the issue. I think a lot of the time people are so afraid of it that things can be going great. And sometimes when things are going so great, you create a problem because you're so used to, well, things are going good, something's going to go wrong.
Right.
Let me subconsciously create this problem.
Yeah,
now.
because this is too good.
Exactly. So I think it's about digging deep into that and looking at the past and looking at it and being like, I see you. You do not have power over me anymore. I am right here, right now, and right here, right now, nothing is lacking from this moment.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's like hacking yourself, you know. It's taking a good hard look and being like, you know what? I know that this is the way that I see it, but that might not be the way that it is. And that's such a freeing thing. We are actually literally just talking about self-sabotage on the way here.
Oh my.
Like
literally.
Yeah, it's so interesting you talk about where it's
divine
like
order.
Totally.
Yeah, I was talking to a girlfriend about how it's interesting because sometimes we have these just very unhealthy patterns where we are so used to a certain way that when something good comes our way, we might not even realize that we're like, something about that just doesn't feel right on us because we're not used to that. So it's like, I got to get this off of me because it doesn't feel right. So you like start doing things to kind of negate or like sabotage, for lack of a better word, all this goodness that could be coming your way. It's very interesting.
Yeah, and I think it's the lack of communication with ourselves and the people around us. And lately, what I've been doing is I'm like, I'll say it out loud. If I have an issue with someone, I'm like, hey, right now I'm feeling jealous of you, but I realize that it's not. I realize that it's me, but I just feel like I needed to express this to you so that we can move past, and I don't ever want you to feel I don't want you to ever feel any ambiguity from me. That's what it is, and it has nothing to do with you, but I know I'm figuring it out.
Girl, that's like
vulnerability, like to
that's
the max.
Like transparency to the max.
The second and so I feel like that in and of itself has made my work better. Awesome. We are literally just as actors recreating the human experience. And the first thing I say, if you don't know yourself, baby, you're not going to do justice to anything that you're trying to recreate.
100%.
No, because you don't. I'm taking this commercial class on Tuesday nights, and like this week was the first week. And one of the things that she's talking about is like, you need to bring you to the work.
Yeah.
Yep.
And if you can't read a script, even if it's like commercial copy, whatever, and ask yourself, well, how would I do this? Or like, what would be not? And I get that sometimes there's character and the character is not like you, but I feel like we're all human. So I think that there's always pieces of us in every character that we can anger, jealousy, envy, whatever.
Anything human is not foreign to us.
No.
We're the ones that create these judgments, and we're like, and then
I'm
you're
not like that. I ain't crazy like that.
And it's like, we all a little jealous. We all a little vindictive.
That's
we all a little ugly.
We're all capable.
Yes.
That's pride that tells us I would never do that.
Right.
And ego trying to judge it. But the truth is and I'm realizing sometimes like us being like, I would never do that. It's like, yeah, you would. You're just mad that person hasn't figured out why they still do it because you also haven't figured out why you still do it.
Yeah. That's
crazy. Right. It's the projection of a lot of times when I get frustrated with people, I find later if I do the work of, trying to understand exactly. I find out later that it's because it's a reflection of the thing that I hate in myself and hadn't spent any time trying to figure out. And I'm looking at them going, they're just the worst. And it's because you're familiar with why they're the worst. Because you feel like you, exactly. And we're such a huge proponent of therapy as well. It's really been a game changer where it's like, oh, you can understand more about yourself and you can actually make practical, small changes every day that equal something better, or at least an understanding of what's happening. Well, you said about a year ago you took the plunge. Was there something in your life that you were like,
I got to do it now?
Got to do it?
Yeah, it's so funny. Me and my mom had always had like a rocky relationship, single parent, so she did the best she could with the tools that she had. And I found that I was making her suffer for the last 2 years, and myself and everybody around me.
Pretty much.
Because I didn't understand myself, and I realized that I had all these feelings that I was suppressing, and I didn't know how to move through them. So then I was making everybody pay, and it was everyone's fault. And I was like, that still doesn't feel right, and I don't know what it is. And I had a breakdown, and I was like, I feel suicidal.
Yeah.
I feel like I don't want to be here. I feel like this doesn't matter, but I know that that's not the truth because I know that I'm so blessed.
Yeah.
Let me talk to someone.
Yeah. I mean, what's self-awareness to go, hey, what I'm feeling is off. There's something that needs to be connected because what I feel, the experience that I'm having right now is so different than my circumstances and even the people in my life that it's like, how do you bridge the gap between that? And it's so smart to reach out, and it's such a beautiful thing that there is people that you can reach out to. And
I
wonder too, like, do you feel like, and I don't know for you, but it's always been for me the case, coming from a Latina family, like, Latin family, whatever, and like.
Oh, the stigma?
Yes.
Oh my God,
like my mom would be like, ¿Cómo que therapy para qué? Es que lo que necesitan una buena, like, like, and it's like, what are you depressed? ¿Para qué estás llorando? It's It's just like this. It was like this constant dismissal of like, you need to like
buck up
constantly. It's like, it's such a funny conversation because even when I started like 3 or 4 years ago, on and off, like I haven't really been super consistent in the last couple of years just because it's really hard with like a baby to like, you know, we took him a couple times and I was like, this is crazy. This is more stress than anything. But, you know, a couple times my mom, because she doesn't live here. So I would
Florida,
be like,
I
well, I was like, I feel like we should, because she stays a long time and I love her, but it's also like, it gets real extra with her, like here for like 2 months. And so I'd be like, I feel like when we would get really crazy, I'm like, I feel like you need to come with me to see Bob. So like Bob is my therapist.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm like, I feel like you need to come with me. And she's like, ¿para qué? Eso no ayuda para nada.
Yeah.
And I'm like, you know, it's like for people that don't understand. It's like, what do you want to do that for? Like, that doesn't help.
Yeah.
And it's just like, how do you even judge something? And I feel like in different communities, there's always like a stigma. Like you go to other folks and they're like, oh, like, you know, if you're super hyper spiritual, like they totally dismiss therapy because they feel like it's not necessary. All you need is God.
Well, so
and it's like,
I do both. I'm not religious, but I'm very spiritual. But I also do understand that I need to understand my own psychosis in order to tap into that spirituality and cleanse that. I do believe that there are ways to be like, okay, this happened. I understand it. I've dissected it. And like recently I came to a point because I'm listening to the book, The Power of Now.
Okay,
and I'm
yeah,
like,
I've heard of it.
I'm like, yo, I think I'm ready to detach from that identity, not that person who I was, because I love that little girl, and poor thing, if I would have known better, I would have treated myself better. I didn't know better, right? But to go back to the stigma of it with me and my mom, I wanted to go to therapy with her when we were 16 because I knew something wasn't right there with me and her.
Interesting.
And it just never happened. She was like, well, then figure it out. But like, I was 16 and I'm like, okay.
How am I going to figure this out?
And then it wasn't until 10 years later, I found my therapist and I started going, we started dissecting things. And I just realized I had a lot of like, cognitive distortion on what I felt, and I didn't have discernment to be like, my feelings are valid, and no, mom, like you're wrong, like yes, you're my mom, but like you're not a nice person to me, or yes, you're my tia, or yes, you're my friend, but you're
toxic.
You're toxic, and I don't have good boundaries, and I'm codependent on you, and you're codependent on me, and how am I supposed to be? You know, it's just like all of these things that I started to rip layers off, and poor thing, me and her went through it for a minute, right? And at first she was very resistant, and I was also very persistent in a way that I can see now was not helpful to the relationship.
You were zealous. You were excited about what you're learning.
You're like, come on.
You're like, hey, this could be the solution, and this is why I feel all this anger.
Preachy.
Yeah.
Yo, and I realize now, like, and then it was also during the time, like, I shaved my head, so everybody,
They're like, she's having her Britney Spears moment.
Everyone was like, they'd call me and they'd be like, "Are you a lesbian? Are you okay?" And I was like, "I can be a lesbian and be okay." Like
those are not interchangeable.
Yeah, like what?
You're like, first off, you're not. I can't even believe you're focusing on the hair.
Yo, yeah.
Yeah, that's hilarious.
It was a hilarious. So everybody thought that I was like going through a mental breakdown, and I guess essentially I was. I was breaking down the construct that I had, formed my life upon, and realized like, oh, this sucks. Like I'm just trying to be what everyone has projected on me, and I don't know who I am. And so I'm angry, but I also realize it's my fault. Like, how do I,
Yeah.
So I started going, and it was rough for us for a minute, and then I finally just surrendered with all the relationships in my life. I was like, you know what? Can I love everyone enough? Because I'm trying to think, I'm growing, grow with me.
Right.
But can I love you enough to just be like,
if they never change.
And like, I see you where you're at, and I accept you because you're able to accept me in this expansive new space that I'm in. Can I love you there? The second that I did that, oh my God, the way in which me and my mom speak to each other now, the openness that we have, like and not just with her, but all of the relationships in my life has transformed for the better, because I feel like a smile begots a smile. We're only just mirrors for each other. Yeah. So if I'm telling you, you know what, you made this tea, but it's really hot and I don't like it, you'd be like, ugh, and I'd be like, hey, do you mind if I get an ice cube for the tea? You'd be like, oh my God, girl, yeah, no problem.
Yeah,
right.
Totally.
It's all, you can say anything you want as long as you come at it with love and understanding, because we all just want to be seen and heard.
It's true.
Totally.
And it's been so nice because I see the transformation that it's made for my family. And it wasn't me trying. When I was trying, it wasn't working.
I feel like it never works.
It's like putting a round
almost,
peg in a square hole.
because you're almost trying to fix somebody,
Right.
and people don't want to be fixed.
No, and the thing is, we don't need to be fixed. We just need to be heard.
Yeah.
Right?
And that's the
huge.
beautiful thing about story. That's why I love story so much. Is because people can listen to a story and self-identify with whatever that journey is, and then they can recognize things that need to be quote unquote fixed or realized in themselves, or the anger that they're holding on to, much quicker than if you were to approach them and be like, hey, you did this wrong.
Yeah.
You know
Very
what I mean?
interesting, because it's almost like sometimes it's like you're kind of removed, but you're not. It's almost like a trick. It's almost like a backdoor to kind of like seeing like, oh,
it's something that unites us all. Stories that we tell, stories that we see, stories that we go watch in live theater and stuff. It's like that kind of stuff unites us all, and we can look past our own, like, she can't tell me that, she's my daughter, I grew her up.
Yo.
You know?
Yep.
Isn't that interesting?
Did you, because you were a child, you were a young child actress, and then did you take a break at some point and then get back into the biz, or did you or how was that journey for you?
So I had been doing a lot of work from like 9 to 16. And then we went through a lot of trauma in my family. Both my mom is the youngest of 3 sisters, and one of her sisters passed away from breast cancer at 16 when I was 16.
Oh, I was like, she was 16? You
You're
were
like,
16. I was like,
how's that work? She's
like,
older.
oh my
I don't know. How old did your mom have?
I was
You were
like,
5?
wow, that's crazy.
Same age. Wow.
She was 16,
You were 16.
I was 16 when she passed, and then her other sister passed when I was 19, and I was just
A lot of loss.
Yeah, a lot of loss, and it was just like back to back to back, and then my grandma passed in between. My great grandma passed in between that, and it was just like everything, like the construct of. But I do think that everything happens for a reason, and my mom's sisters, and she'll tell you herself. Angels. I have never met more beautiful people in my life. And I could be biased because they're my tias, right? But when I tell you, like, would give the shirt off of their back to a stranger just because they understood what love was. They understood, they say, like, the good die young, like they serve their purpose. They touch the hearts of many. And sometimes the universe is like, okay, you gave your gift. Who's going to learn? And I think it forced us as a family to learn and grow together because we are so tight. We love so hard. We've gone through a lot of hardship, but we're like here for each other. And that was during the time that I took like off from acting, was from like 16 to 23-ish.
Okay.
23, 24. And I got back in, I'm 26 now. I got
Awesome.
back into it like a couple of years ago.
So what got you back in? What reeled you back in?
Well, she probably never lost it.
I've
yeah.
They say some people choose this and some people are chosen. And at the risk of sounding cocky, I definitely think I'm one of those people that were chosen.
Yeah.
There's nothing that I've ever, like, I've never not known what I wanted to do. And I know that's very rare for anybody.
Right.
Yeah.
In first grade, my mom, like, she would come to school and like, come on, girl, you need to read if you want to be an actress. Like, I've just always known this is what I wanted to do. And so I took a class, and I'm telling you, it was like, again, divine order. It was like, okay, well, I'm gonna figure it out. I went on a couple auditions. I booked American Horror Story by myself, no agent, no representation.
Awesome.
I was like, and that's when I was like,
okay.
I was like, the powers that be understand that I have something to say, and I don't even know what it is yet, because I understand that it's not mine. It comes from something much larger than me. But if you believe in me, I'm going to figure out how to hone it and help as many people as I can with it, whatever it is, once it discovers me. And I think that's kind of how it felt with like mental health advocacy and just, the work that I do and everything else. So I feel like I'm starting to try and figure it out,
But it's such a journey though, even all of it, right? Because we're always evolving as artists as storytellers. So
and
I think
it feels so crazy. Like, something that just hit my thoughts as we were talking is we are also in a landscape shift in the way that people watch TV and film.
Yeah.
That it's like what was already a crazy environment has gotten even crazier. And it's like yes, there's more opportunity. There's more stuff streaming and stuff like that, but there's also a lot of competition now. There's a lot of
I don't believe in competition.
I mean,
I'm just kidding, but no, yeah, I hear you.
more people have access, meaning that there's more. There's technically more spots, but there's more people going for them, right?
Mm-hmm.
Which is the struggle of an actor.
Right.
There's one job for you, and there's 10 that look like you sitting in the room. You know what I mean?
But there's only one you.
Yeah, that's right.
Bring in your likeness.
And that's what I was kind of drilling into is the secret, the quote unquote secret of all this is bring you, your story, your experiences, because ultimately that's going to craft your career, not someone else's. You know, because we always laugh whenever we hear different stories, and it's like everyone's story is so different.
Yeah.
Like there's not a take this class, pay this money, get this headshot, and you win. It's literally it's everything in between. It's I took headshots with that person, and then I started booking, and then I'm like, okay, well, I took headshots with that person, and
I didn't go out ever. Just kidding.
It's literally it's so unique to your own experience. It's like, how can we ever be so blind to the fact that it comes from our stories? You know what I mean?
I think the machine, speaking of the industry, it has a way of making you feel so small and insignificant. Yeah. But if you're not in touch with your artistry and yourself, you'll definitely lose that authenticity of being like, no, but what I have to say matters. Yeah. I went into I do voiceover acting as well, and I went into a voiceover audition, and it was an, you know, usually when you do VOs, like they'll send you the material, and then they had some, it's like a self-tape type of situation. You record it and you send it back, right? But this one, they brought me in, and they don't usually do that for voiceover auditions. So I was like, okay. And my agent was like, you know, we're only bringing in 5 people. She's like, and I'm bringing you in because you need, like, you got to start getting on it. Like, you're so good, blah, blah. And I'm just like, okay, thank you very much. You know, okay, let's do this, right?
You're like, let's do this.
I read the breakdown, and it says 15 years old and Caucasian. I'm the only one that's, like, brown and in the room. Yeah. And a piece of me gets a little insecure, and I'm like, no, Annie. They brought you because they see you, and they like what you can do, no one else can do. It's your likeness. Go in there and do it. Well, I hear all these blonde hair, blue-eyed women going in the room, and they're doing it. Wow! Oh my God! This is like really over the top. And I'm like, that is not how I read this. I'm like, am I gonna be wrong? And I was like, no, Annie.
Stick to your guns, girl.
Yes, stick to your guns. Trust your gut, and don't, because the truth is, casting think about it. When you thought about your ideal partner, or what you wanted in someone, or how you've viewed your life, right? Viewed your life, it's like you're living it, and a lot of the things that you thought you wanted or didn't, you got them, and you're like, that's not it. And things change as they go, but you know.
Yes.
Right?
Yes.
So I went in there and I did my thing, and at the end, the casting director ended up hitting up my agent and was like, that was the best read that I heard today.
That's awesome.
Super talented, like good for her, blah, blah, blah. And it wasn't about the compliment. Thank you very much for the compliment. But it was more so about me being like, own your shit.
Yeah.
Like, own it. Because, like, no one has your likeness.
Right.
There can be a million girls that look like you, but it's not even about that.
Right.
It's about you, mama. Like, you got it. Like, everything has been leading up to this moment of you just stepping in your power, because we often assume, you know, like, oh, she's pretty, like her pretty, like, and then maybe I'm not the prettiest one. But it's like, no, because I shine, you shine. My light is not here to frighten you. And if it frightens you, check in with that, because that's not me, baby. That's you. Yeah. Like, I want to see you win. I think you're so fire. So I go throughout the world with that. I'm like, I refute. By me letting my light shine, I'm unconsciously allowing others to do the same. I refuse to think that there is competition.
Well, and there's also like,
I love that.
It's also like the mindset, because there are some people that are like, I want my light to shine, but I want to dim yours.
There is
then that's
like
not
that.
Then that's not it. They don't want their light to shine.
Right.
And that's the truth.
Yes.
Because that's not light. That's ugly. That's ugly, and it feels ugly. You know what I mean?
It goes back to the like the thought that hurt people. You know, it's like, if you ain't checking with yourself, if you're not going to therapy, you might not know that you are trying to dim other people out. You know what I mean? Like, one of my favorite like analogies is, if you're ever crab fishing. I'm from the South, so
I know,
familiar with it. You don't actually have to put a lid when you catch crab. You can put them in a bucket. You don't have to put a lid on that bucket.
Oh, because they pull themselves down.
They pull each other down. The moment that someone tries to get out of the bucket, they don't help. They don't push each other out, which they totally could, and all of them could get out. They pull each other down, and it's like, it's the battle of trying not to be that crab, but rather be the one that says, you know what, you got a good thing going. I want to see you succeed. And by doing that, what you're saying is it's like seeing other people to success. If you are secure in who you are and what you bring to the table, that's not going to challenge how you feel about yourself.
Like my aunt always says, "Lo que es para ti, nadie te lo quita."
Yep.
And I think it's like what's for you, nobody can take from you.
Yep.
Yeah.
And it's like it's true. I think that if we really trusted that more, I think there would be less like when we're in the room and then you're like mad dogging everybody and then people are mad dogging you and you're like, hey, and they're just like,
let me tell you, that is never, even as a child actor, like it was never my nature. Like I'd leave the room and I'd be like I remember one girl was like, I don't understand what they mean by this. And I was like, you should say it like this because they did. Like it was never, because I can tell you, I can give you a line read and tell you how to say everything and blah, blah, blah. You're still not going to say it like me.
Right.
Yeah.
I'm my own person. You're going to say it like you, but me helping you doesn't take away from me. Like I'm
and your
fire.
work. Yeah.
And but I say all that and I don't mean to, because sometimes it can sound judgmental. Like, oh, you think that way? I remember as a kid, I would be around a lot of people who were snarky and knew how to do really good comebacks and were swift. And that was never my nature. I've never been jealous. I've never been vindictive in that way. When people would hurt me, I would always go to, why would you do that? Like I'd cry. I'm very sensitive. And I remember as a kid thinking, I can't wait till I can tell someone off and and I can't wait till I can hurt them, right? And get this and learn these worldly ways. And I didn't know any better. And it wasn't until I was in Joshua Tree by myself and had that silence, it just hit me and I started laughing. And I was like, I learned all of these things that don't serve me and hurt everyone around me, and including myself. That is so funny when I had it all to begin with. Like the purity, like that's the truth. Being able to tell a homegirl, like, I'm a little jealous of you right now, but I know it's not of you. It's just I wish I had that opportunity. I just felt like I needed to say it. I'm so proud of you. I'm so sorry if that hurts you that I feel this way, but it's hard for me to celebrate you right now. Imagine if we all just walked around being that transparent. We would never have this, like, I think she likes me, but she doesn't. And like, that's this girl.
Or is she really happy for me? Or like,
the mind
it doesn't
reading.
seem like she's really like celebrating with me. And a lot of times I think that even in that, some people aren't. Some people aren't celebrating with you.
Right.
Like they're kind of like secretly hating when I think they, there's this like, when you bring something to light, where there's light, there is no darkness. So like when you bring something to the light, even if it's your ugliness of like that thought of like to think like right now it's like whatever, like your opinion is like, well, why don't I have that opportunity or what? It's like even when you just like
acknowledge it,
you take its power away.
Right.
Yep.
Yeah, you're not ruled by it anymore because you see you're hacking yourself. You see your pitfall and you're like, oh, that jealousy is only poisoning me. It's not actually affecting anything else, but I'm getting worse. I'm getting sadder. You know what I mean? Like, it's a hard thing to realize. Have you not had someone outside of yourself to help? That's why we freaking love therapy, because it's like you can see things. Even in our marriage, I can see things now clearly about myself that I would have never had I not been married to this wonderful woman. You know what I mean? Like, had I not been married to her, and like on a silly note, like she is very like attention to detail and she's really good at that. I'm not. Something that I didn't realize is that I'm not. So like, it's so funny because like, I'll just like kick my shoes off and leave them wherever. And then I realize the value in taking care of the things that you have whenever she's like, hey, that's like, why is it in the middle of the the walkway? And you're just kind of kicking them off. And so that kind of bleeds together. And that's the beautiful thing of relationships. And I think if you can live your life being open and honest and like you're saying, like bringing to light the things that you're feeling with someone who you trust, who understands, you as well. I think that's such a wonderful thing that relationships can provide that you cannot do just by yourself.
Because you don't get to experience yourself by yourself.
Right.
We are the best liars, not to anyone else, to ourselves.
Totally.
I didn't even realize how much I was lying to myself. I was like, I'm great, and everybody doesn't know any better, and it's fine.
They need help.
Like,
they crazy.
Right? And the second I was like, oh, girl, you talking about yourself? That's crazy.
That's hilarious. So as far as like because I want to like know more about like what are you excited about, like projects that you've done, like roles, like these opportunities that you're part of these new shows that like, especially with like all these shows that are like, you know, really big for Latinos and stuff. And like, it's just, I feel like there's like a lot of stuff just popping up and like, how do you feel to be like a part of that? And what do you feel like, just, you know what I'm saying?
Oh my gosh, I feel so honored and overwhelmed. I mean, I just feel so fortunate to be working in general, to be able to pay my bills off of, you know, the gifts that I have and doing something that I love.
Right.
But even more than that, to be able to work on Hentified this first season. Oh my gosh. I am so excited for this story, this conversation to start about gentrification and hentification in the community. I'm born and raised in East LA. So
well, I was going to say,
you have
yes.
no idea how personal this project was for me. It was literally a block away from where my dad's house was, like, or is. Like, I went to elementary school like 2 miles up the street from like the Hammer Studios that we were shooting at. Like, it just was like one of the craziest experiences. And then the part that I get to play, Stanford grad, college educated, from the hood, like is fully rooted into where she is and wants to give back to the community, and is with this guy who is a good guy but just can't seem to get his stuff together, and he's figuring it out, and she loves him. And it helped me find a lot of, this role in particular helped me find a lot of healing with the relationship that I had with my mom and my dad. I didn't grow up with either of them, with both of them in the household.
Yeah.
And I remember I condemned my mom a lot for things that she did, being a single parent. And you know, I condemned my dad a lot for all these things too. And when you're coming at a role, and the role that I was playing very much reminded me, my mom's a teacher, again, works in East LA, and she's an advocate for the arts. And so right now she works as an itinerant where she teaches dance to a bunch of inner city kids.
No way.
Oh my God. My mom is, and she's a great teacher.
Awesome.
And a beautiful mom too. I mean, I know I've been like, you know, saying all that.
No, girl, trust me. Like, I get it. Because my mom and I have had a very tumultuous relationship pretty much my whole like life. But I think now as I've gotten older and I have my own son now, it's like, I get what you're saying. It's like you have these opinions and you have this truth that was very much real. Yeah. But that doesn't take away from the fact that like there's still beautiful, strong women that like did the best they could.
Yes. Yeah. Yo, through doing that role, because it reminded me so much of my mom, a piece of me was like, ugh. And then I was like, Annie, you're not going to do it justice if you're judging the role. Like, if you're judging the character, like, look at it from human eyes, like, for real, for real. And then when I finally did, I was like, there were so many cathartic experiences where I just was like, oh, like crying for me and for what I saw she went through. Yeah. Whilst living in this hentified world. And what I'm so excited for is the story and the character that I get to play. We don't get to see that on TV. We don't get to see ourselves as professors. We don't get to see ourselves as educated, but also still connected to our roots. It's like either we're educated and we're trying to deny everything and everywhere we came from, right? Like, yes, but you know, this is where I am now. It's like, nah, like
I moved to New York now, and I don't want anything to do with
that's not part of me anymore, or whatever.
Exactly.
And that's the beautiful thing, even kind of circling back about story. It's like you got to participate in this beautifully written and wonderfully told story that then reminded you and showed you a glimpse of what your mom went through that you would have never seen because of the relationship that you have.
Is the show a play off of like what's happening today, like with gentrification, like in the areas that have, like, you know, where you're like, you read these stories about like the communities, like people buying all this property to like buy homes, and then like people that have lived in these communities for 20 plus years are getting like kind of like booted out.
Displaced,
and is that kind of what is there like that premise of the show? Or
so it's very much, it talks about a bunch of things. To me, what it feels like a very big coming of age story for everybody involved. It's a story centered around these 3 cousins, and their grandpa owns this taco shop, and the taco shop is going down, and they're trying to figure out how to keep it afloat and then deal with the things that are going on in their separate life. And it does show what gentrification is doing to the neighborhood, and then even more so, like, yes, gentrification, but also like we got all this other shit to worry about, and now you're telling me you're trying to kick us out of our own neighborhood? Like, are you joking me? And then furthermore, they talk about gentification. So gentification, you know, like mi gente, my people, right?
Of course.
It's like me, for instance. So I'm born and raised in East LA. I don't live there anymore. I live in the Valley. I would hope one day I would be able to make enough money to buy a home out there. I would essentially be a gentrifier because I would be buying a piece of property and possibly displacing a family for, and I think what they're trying to do, in my opinion, is create the conversation, because it's like, what is right, what is wrong, and people will tell me, I understand gentrification, it's not good, but it's almost like, is it inevitable? What do we do?
Yeah, there's a lot. I've read
talk
so many things about it.
Well, because back in the day, East LA used to be predominantly white. It was Jewish. You go to the cemetery over there, you see a lot of Jewish names, and then white flight happened, and everybody moved up to Northridge and out to the west and out there, and then all the Latinos came down, and now and they talk about how in the areas, then when a bunch of brown people came in, police stopped policing. So the economy of these areas went down. Well, now that the economy of these areas go down, people with money who are predominantly young and Caucasian, and you know what I mean, and have, they come in and they buy up and they fix up, and now the price to live out there is even more expensive than it is to live in downtown LA. And
it's crazy.
It's like that. It's like, okay, so but we also were a migrating people back in the day. All of us, not just like Latinos, but all of us back in the day, we would be like, okay, where's their land and food?
Right.
We're gonna move there. We don't do that anymore. How do we figure out a common ground? How do we make people feel safe in their own neighborhoods? How do we, what is the right way? I feel like this is a conversation starter. And again, talking about storytelling, I love it because it may be 1,000% wrong. It may be 1,000% right. It may be in the middle. However, if you disagree, please create another piece of work that combats this. Let's fucking talk.
Yeah. Or you know what? And that's the thing that I think that I read this meme or something today, which again, I'm not the show is for entertainment, but I think there was something powerful about what it was saying. It was something along the lines of we've stopped talking basically it's people have stopped talking about they talked about religion and politics because I feel like those are very hot topic issues. Mm-hmm. And instead of saying we don't want to talk about this, it's basically saying what we should be doing is learning how to have civil conversations about them.
Right.
And ultimately, I think that there's something about what's happening. And I don't know, I feel like nothing new is under the sun. I feel like it just looks different. Yeah. I feel like there's just things that are recycled, but there's I always made a joke, shit that I was wearing in the 90s, because I'm a lot older than you, but yes, it's back. It looks a little different. It looks a little bit more hip, but it's still the idea of it. And I think things come about, where I grew up. It's I took him, we went to go get some Nicaraguan food, nearby where I grew up.
My eyes have been opened.
And he was let me get that gallo pinto. And
so
it's funny because we drove by where I grew up in a duplex that my parents were renting a guest house in the back that was one bedroom. But you can see that it's so changed, and it's just, the little market is now closed, and you see some a couple of hipsters here and there, and but it's interesting because there's still some Latin families that are there. Yeah. But all that to say, I think that it's interesting when you look at just how I was saying. I think coming back to I don't think that there's anything new under the sun. I feel like though these seems like new problems of people not being able to have conversations, I just think that because there's such an emphasis on what social media is, and there's such an overabundance of really what you're seeing because of algorithms and what's on your feed because of who you're following. So there's narratives that
it's
are
an
constantly
echo chamber.
Yeah.
It feeds you what you either love to hear or hate to hear.
Yeah.
And I
so
think
it just
that
solidifies your point of view on things.
I'm just
rather than having an open mind.
Conversations aren't being had anymore. Two people can't have a conversation about agree to disagree. It's either it's this hard line. And I think that it doesn't, what are we all going to go live on separate planets or separate communes? That's just you and the people that you are in agreement with. I think we've lost the art of that. I feel like there's something about that where I think that that's where kind of stories can break those lines, because for some reason I think people they're not as offended sometimes because they don't feel like they're personally being attacked.
Totally.
Yeah.
So they can watch a story and kind of be versus And then now it's like, okay, well, let's have a conversation about this.
Yeah, and I think the way in which this show approaches a lot of these, you know, heavy topics is from a very human standpoint. It's like even, you know, think about, especially in the Latino communities. I don't know, you know, I mean, obviously I can't speak from any other perspective, right, but my own. But in a lot of that, it's like we can be going through the hardest times, yet we'll make a joke. Like I'm like, you know, like there was some like at the funeral, like there was some funny shit that happened, and I remember like we were laughing hard, and we're like, this is not appropriate.
Right.
However, it's like it's human, it's
Right.
real. Like nothing happens linear. You know, we are not linear beings.
Exactly.
Is the truth, and so I think what this show has, it's a level of humanity, and I think. Especially because there's a bunch of brown faces that we've never seen on the screen before that are bringing something different and showing like, hey, we are a people too. We're not just the face fillers, like the ethnic checkbox that you need. Like we're not just the janitor in the building or the landlord that has a couple lines but no real fully bodied and human character. You know?
Right.
Do you feel like as far as like the cast goes, and I'd be curious because I definitely want to watch the show, and you know, and I find that for me, this has been my career because I've been in this industry for kind of a long time, but kind of in and out of it. I always found that for me, like as a Latina, that like I never quite like they were like, oh, but you have green eyes. Like I don't like. There's this like weird thing where I'm not like quite Latina enough, but then I'm also not because I'm full. Like my parents are 100% Nicaraguan. Like I have light eyes. There must be some Spaniard blood in there somewhere because my grandpa had blonde hair and blue eyes, but like did not speak a lick of English. And so I'm curious to see like how like even with like the Latinos coming out, is there like a diversity in even like how Latinos look and act, or you know what I mean, like within the different shows?
Yeah, definitely.
Which is awesome because I feel like I had agents tell me like you should go get brown contacts, like you'll probably work more, like years ago, like 10 years ago. And I'm like, and I actually went and got them, and they were like
Painful?
awful. Like no, they were just awful. They didn't even look brown. They looked like mustard, like an awful. Like they weren't even brown. I'm like this is ridiculous. I'm not wearing these.
Yeah.
And so it's funny because I just sometimes find that has been my experience, and I know that that's not the case for everybody. But it's almost like they don't know what box to put you in because you're brown, but you're kind of light, and then you have light eyes, and your features are kind of different. So I don't know.
Well, that's how I felt in trying to brand myself. I mean, like I'm brown, but I didn't grow up speaking Spanish. I'm fourth generation here. I didn't learn how to speak Spanish until I was maybe about 18, 19. Wow. And I speak like pocha Spanish. Like it's broken up as a mother. Like it is not like and I'm Latina, but I also like it's so funny in school I didn't grow up hanging out with like all the Latino kids. I just didn't. I just didn't identify with them in the same way because I was so Americanized. And I remember even growing up, like, so like I identify with that in a completely different way because I was like, like I can do these roles, but I'm not gonna do it. I know this is not my niche. Like this isn't it, you know. And but in this show, I think they do have there's a lot of different things represented in this one. Like we have a beautiful Dominican girl, one of my homegirls, Julissa Calderon. She's like
that's awesome,
fire human and a badass actress. Everybody on this show brings something different and a different perspective of what Latinos look like and how colorful and beautiful we are. And
it's so, and yeah, I love that.
And kind of circling back to the beginning of the convo where you're talking about, hey, we see the what is that term for the stereotype? We often see that represented, but you're filling in the color, right? With all the other pieces that make up a human experience.
Yes.
And that's so exciting to see. When does this show? Has the show already been released? Is it coming out soon?
No, I don't know.
Isn't that
No
the worst?
one will tell us. You know what?
You're like, come on, guys.
Isn't that the worst?
I don't know. I hope it'll come out sometime in the beginning of next year. However, you can add it to your watch list on Netflix already, which is
okay.
so
That's
cool.
amazing.
That's exciting.
That's amazing.
That means it's coming.
It's coming.
Yeah.
Like it is made.
I'm so excited for you.
Oh my! I am so excited for everyone just to see it and finally see themselves, because you cannot become what you don't see. You know what I mean? It's, and you can, but it's so much harder. I grew up identifying with Bette Midler and Barbara Streisand. I didn't, and my mom never instilled in me like, we're Latino, you know, it's gonna be harder for us and this is how we work. She was just like, just do a thing. And I remember being like, Bette Midler's Latina, right? Like she sings like me. Like, we dance, and my mom's like,
She's got the same spirit.
She's so
yeah,
nice.
yeah. She's like, girl, she Jewish, and I'm like, for real? I'm like, that's my tia though, tia Bette. What you mean?
But I love that. But that also didn't hold you back. Do you feel like that mentality of your mom never not saying that to you was a service or a disservice?
I think it was a service for me at the time because, ignorance is bliss. I didn't know any better. And so I was walking through the world, like being like, well, I don't care, like whatever. But with that also being said, I didn't really embrace being a Mexican American, a Chicana woman until I went to community college and started taking Chicano studies classes. I used to want to shy away from being Mexican because there's a book called Anything But a Mexican, right? Especially in like, the United States. Yeah. Being Mexican, it was like, you're the cleaner, you're the cook, you're the babysitter, you're this, you're Puerto Rican, ooh, you're it, like it was like everything else was exotified, but not being Mexican. For that was the experience that I went through growing up, And
isn't that so crazy?
It is. But now, bro, when I finally went to take Chicano studies class, I found out Aztecs were the first ones that did open heart surgery. I'm like, Aztecs we're lit.
Aztecs are baller.
I was like, we invented the number 0. Tight. We're smart as hell. Suck it. Like, go away.
It's so funny.
Their
because
warriors were intense too.
I was like, it was so funny how like growing up, because I'm first generation and you're fourth. Mm-hmm. So it's like when I was growing up, I wanted, so I was in San Bernardino, right? Mm-hmm. So there wasn't a lot of like Nicaraguans. It was all like either white or like some black and then some like Asians and whatever else. But it was funny because I wanted to, and then when I got to junior high, it was very either Mexican or black. It was like the school I went to was very like polarized, kind of like there was like a lot of riots and stuff like that. And for me, it was like nobody knew what like Nicaraguan was. They're like, nigga, what? What? And I'm like, Nicaraguan, like Nica. And they're like, where is that? And so I was trying to convince my parents that no, we're Mexican. You see this history book right here? Like basically this is us. Porque there's the like mestizos and there's like this and the Spaniards mixed. I'm like, and then my mom's like, we're not. We're Nicaraguan. And even within like the different cultures, like, cause all my friends were Mexican, like Mexican American, like their parents, they didn't speak any Spanish. Like I was the only one that spoke Spanish, like very much like Mexican American, and like their moms, like, it was a very interesting dynamic because I grew up with both my parents and they're still married now, but they're crazy, but like they're married. But like, a lot of my friends grew up in single family homes. And, my mom, it was just very interesting because when I was growing up, I was always like a fan for like the underdog. And I don't mean that in like a condescending way. I just was like, there was just such animosity where I'm like, I don't want you hanging out with those cholas. Like you're gonna get, because a lot of them were pregnant in junior high. And it was, I think that was my mom's biggest fear coming from another country to the States, that her daughters were going to go get pregnant in junior high. And that's not what you do. And you go to school to be a doctor, a lawyer, an attorney. Yeah. And it was very much like I was like, girl, I was all chola'd out, but I was like in honors classes.
Yeah, crunchy
like,
hair.
I had like the crunchy hair. I was like trying to pretend like I was like, I'll go fuck her up. Like, I'll go fight her. I'll go fight him. Like, I got all my friends. Like, I was like being somebody that I totally just, but that was like,
she tells me stories sometimes. I'm like, what, because I only know her. We've been married for 3 years, and we've been, that's such a small part of her life. So whenever she tells me these stories, I'm like, who are you?
Or he sees pictures when I was like in junior high or whatever.
Amazing.
But it was just, it was this very much thing, like kind of to.
She's gonna put up a picture in the.
Yeah,
right?
exactly. If you're a Patreon
watch.
Supporter, then
you better sponsor you for that. But it's one of those things where my mom would be like she had this stigma against like my Mexican friends that they were less than, or like, and it was, I didn't understand that. I'm like, what do you, and like my aunts, because they were always like, get out of the sun, like stay out of the sun, that I wasn't so dark, or, and then I went through this like weird phase where I wanted to be white because like all my pretty blonde friends, and I would put sun in my hair, and I just wanted to be like not tan, and I wanted to do my hair
I went through it too. I was
Kelly Kapowski from Saved by the Bell.
Girl, I remember I would like try not to be in the sun as well, and I'm brown. Like you look at me, like I look brown, like I'm brown as hell. But back then, I would try to be like, I like the Snow White look, like the dark hair, the light skin, and it was just like,
isn't it weird?
Oh, mama, no, you're so beautiful the way you are. Embrace it.
Yeah, it's a really weird, and I would always always like hear my family talking because my mom has 10 brothers and sisters. And I'm like, I don't understand. And this was at the time. So at the time, I'm like younger and I'm kind of just like, I have a mouth. And I'm like, I don't understand what any of you guys are even talking about right now because we're all Latinos. Like Mexican, whether it's like from Nicaragua or because I have some family in Florida that they're Cuban. And I'm like, at the end of the day, at the time, I was just like, because what I experienced a lot of racism growing up and having people say things to me, which was weird because I would have white people calling me like telling me to go back to Mexico, and I'm like, what the fuck? Like I ain't even from whatever. And then I'd have like, you know, or if people heard me speaking Spanish in LA, which is like this is one of the most diverse cities in the world. Like, why are you calling me like a spick, telling me to shut the fuck up and like go speak your language somewhere else? And I'm like, damn, like what's it like in like the Midwest, like where it's like, you know, predominantly white. Like we're in if you're in LA, you're going to see so many colors of the rainbow. But and I'm experiencing racism like that on that level.
Well, I think what it is, again, it goes back to storytelling. If we are not represented in, think about it, a lot of the stories that have been told about us, we've been taught about who we are through the system. The system is the construct of the system has been made on what? The basis of white men. Right. You know, the colonization, we don't get to see ourselves reflected in history books. It's if you look at them back in, you know, it's like there's like little sections about there's little sections unless you take an African American history class in high school or a Chicano studies history class. And even that, all of those books, we don't get to experience ourselves through ourselves. So we are not ever really getting the truth of what that is. However, I think that you said there's a paradigm shift, things are changing where we are now being not given, fuck that. We're taking these opportunities that have been owed to us because we deserve to have our stories told so that we can see ourselves through our eyes represented in this most authentic form. And you know, and a bunch of stories will come out. And it's not taking stories away from anyone else. We're just adding more to the pot.
It shouldn't be anyway. Yeah. It shouldn't be. That's crazy. And I think
it should be an ad.
It should be an ad. And because even with my aunts, I'm like, you guys are stupid. Like, seriously, you guys are talking shit about like other like Latino, like you realize that to the majority of the people that don't get us, we're all the same.
And the truth is, like, we're going at each other. Everybody already coming at us.
That's what I'm saying.
We gotta look at each other and be like, "Mama, I see you. Like, we're here. Like, and I see you.
And they don't.
Girl, I see you. Okay, you are Latina AF, and I fucking see you."
Yeah, and that's where I never got it. And I didn't even. This was years ago before all this stuff. Even then, I felt like I don't get what you're doing because if I'm being told this by these people, you do realize that like they're looking at you too with your heavy ass accent. No, what are you talking about? And they're looking at you like you ain't white. Like you're trying to like whiten yourself up and like I'm better than like those people, referring to other Latinos. And I'm like, well, how is this even helping anybody? Like it's not helping anybody at all. Like you're literally, it's almost kind of like, I think when you try to right a wrong by like then okay, so like if that's what was happening, right, if you had like a certain subset of people that were like trying to oppress or trying to like talk shit to you, but then you're like, well, instead of realizing that that's wrong, I'm now going to try to be like you versus like be who I am and then rise above as me. Like, you know, and even then like, you know, sometimes I feel like even what's going on with like the whole like women and men stuff, I feel like we need to be embracing like both sexes and like being like our own strengths versus like tearing somebody down. Because what's the point in tearing anybody down? Like that was done to us for so long. Why are we not going to tear people down? And we, like you said, like, why do I need to dim your light so my light can shine bright? Everybody's light can be shining bright. It's
shine
just
bright like a diamond.
It's just this crazy thing that it's this conversation that I feel like it isn't being had. And I feel like even when I have it with my own family members today, I'm like, I just don't get it. I don't get it. Like, why are we talking still? Like, I don't even know. Like, we're all like,
I think, you know, I've been all about the circles tonight, but it kind of feels like a throwback to what we were saying earlier, where if you're talking about someone who is spreading hate themselves, it's like there's something that's untapped in them.
Exactly. And I think it's the amount of ego that we have attached to these ideas, and the fear of being wrong. It makes the ego feel like it's dying, but That's not the and ego should be dead. Ego,
Right.
we do not need ego.
No, girl, it helps nobody.
And I
That's
think
right.
we have like like the wrong terms. It's like you can have confidence
Totally.
without ego.
Totally.
I am confident as a
100%.
mother effer. I try my hardest to let go of my ego, and I think that's why I have so much transparency.
Right.
Because I'm like, if I can't take someone telling me out of the greater good of our relationship, like, hey, that was an ugly trait you had. I'm like, oh, my bad. Okay, I'm gonna work on that because I don't want to have that.
Right.
I don't want to
Yeah.
like, So but you know what? I think it starts here and it starts right now. It's us having this open space of these conversations of these uncomfortable topics and
Yeah.
and talking about the truths of them and understanding that
Yeah.
it is the truth right now and the truths that we've been through. However, we can create a new narrative.
That's right.
We can be the change right now.
Yes.
And in coming from love. I hear things that my certain family members say, and sometimes I'm like, I'm not going to argue with you because you're not going to hear it. However, I'm going to love you so hard. And I do
need some of that. I like to be like, I just don't even go over anymore. But yes.
No, but because I realized I'm like, damn, I love these people.
Yeah.
You just don't know how to love yourself. And I'm like, and I get that. I totally get that. I was in a relationship and we broke up because I thought he needed to give me all these things. And I realized the best thing that he ever gave me was not giving them to me because it forced me to give it to myself. It forced me to
Love
look
that.
inward. And I'm just like, now I'm like, yo, I'm about to be a whole ass person out here in these streets. Like, people don't even know what that feels like. And and how dare I rob them of that experience by telling them that they're wrong and that they need to do this? No, we are all smart enough and we have the wherewithal. It's just about holding space. Because think about it.
I
Sometimes
love that.
when we go on our own tangents, right? And we'll be foaming at the mouth and you're saying this, and then someone calmly is like, well, why do you believe that? And you're like, well, because of this. And it's like, well, why do you believe that? And then you get deeper and deeper and you're like, because someone told me.
Yeah.
And then you're like,
Yes.
and then you're like, and someone who allows the space will be like, how do you feel about that? And you're like, well, I don't think I like it.
Yeah.
Oh, well, that's something to think about. I'm not telling you you're wrong or right. Mull that over on your own. I guarantee you more often than not, you allowed space for them because we already know we're all so smart as a species. We're the ones that get convoluted again with the ways of the world and thinking we need to conform to society and the norm. But norm is only what we've created that pattern to be.
Well, and also too, like our individual like experiences and like the things that have like been our security.
Yeah.
Because it's funny, like even I've kind of talked to Caitlin about this before, where it's like we've talked about this, where it's like we grew up, girl. We could not have grown up more different than like we are. So I'm like just so different. And it's funny because we've had conversations that I don't particularly like I don't like talking about politics. I don't like talking about this, that, or the other. And I think that just growing up, like I've had very strong, like kind of like how you said, where it's like, well, why do you think that? Well, whatever. Like, what are you even talking about? Of course, this makes the most sense. It's like you don't really even have a concrete answer. And we've had some like really long conversations about certain
I'm
topics.
a big talker. I like talking.
And I'm like, I don't need to be talking about this right now, Preston. And then it's like,
Preston.
and it's like when I'm really sitting with myself and holding space to like really the conversation, I think that that's even part of like being in relationships that can challenge you in a good way, where it's done in love, because he's very gracious. I'm like, kind of a little bit of a hothead and a little fire. So I'm like, well, I don't know, like, no, I hear what you're saying. I guess that makes sense. So like, then what's the, you know what I mean? But there's now a conversation. There's a shift. But one of the things that we've talked about is like, if we who love each other, we made a baby, we have a baby, cannot even, I realized this for myself. It was a very like big, like wake up moment where it's like, if we can't even have a conversation about things that we vehemently disagree on, or maybe we don't disagree as much as we think that we do, but it's just because the way that we're communicating it, or we're not really understanding or seeking to understand.
Yes.
Then I feel like, how are strangers going to do it?
That what you just said. We don't speak to seek to we don't have conversations to seek to understand. I realize people don't listen.
Totally.
No one listens, like no one. And it's because we haven't been taught to listen. What we've been taught to is to have a conversation to combat, so you can hear my point of view.
Debate it and be like, okay, come back. I got my comeback.
And I didn't realize it until I realized it in myself. And been having conversation with friends and even my mom, and we'll talk about things, and I've really been making it a point to listen, because I'm like, I think that's a lot of the reason why I don't like or feel animosity or this, that, and the other, because I'm not really listening.
Yeah.
And
But isn't that like the first thing that they teach, like in acting? It's like to really listen.
Yeah, isn't that
Yeah.
funny?
Meisner, just repeat.
yeah.
Like, I look bored. You look bored. You're listening to everything that they're saying. It's just,
You look bored.
you look bored. I look bored. No, you look bored. I look bored. It's just like,
But even then, when you first, because so I did Meisner too, but when I first did it, I was like, let me
show you
the
how it's
moment.
done.
Let me show you.
Yeah.
Let me show you the moment. That's not the moment. This is the moment, right? Ego. All it is
Yeah.
ego. We don't listen. Why? Because ego. Because what if we're wrong? Mom, what if you're? What if you're wrong? What if you're
God
wrong
forbid.
and you get, and you would accept it and you get your ego out of the way, and then you get a download and you're like, oh snap, I got new ways of being right. Because we think of wrong as like we are wrong, as now
Right.
I'm wrong
A
about this
judgment,
thing,
yeah.
and now I'm just a wrong person. Like I'm walking around and everybody sees the W or the L on my forehead, right? But the truth is, like, that idea was wrong, and that's okay. And you're never gonna learn unless you mess up.
Right.
We're so
Yeah.
afraid to make mistakes.
but it's also, how do you evolve if you're not learning and you're always right?
Listen, let me tell you a little thing, right? So I'm in Joshua Tree. I'm listening to The Power of Now, and he's talking about the difference of being and presence. And being is just being, but he said presence is consciousness being conscious of itself. I am like, what in the mother of pearl? I pause it, and I'm trying to call all my friends, family, like, please help me explain what this means.
What does this
Consciousness
mean?
being conscious. What does that even mean, right? And I'm going crazy. And so 2 days later, I'm like, you know what? Forget it. I'm gonna just play the tape. Let's see what happens. I play it immediately after. You know, presence is consciousness being conscious of itself. Don't try and make sense of this. I'm like, oh,
I should have listened for 2 more minutes.
I'm like, the thing that I keep saying no one does.
Yeah.
I myself struggle with, and
Yeah.
it made me laugh. It was like one of those, like, yo, the universe, the world, God, they have to have a sense of humor, because they know.
Yes, girl.
And you got to be
Yes.
able to laugh at yourself.
I laughed, and
yeah.
I was like, listen, Annie, just listen.
Love
Yeah,
that.
I love that.
And love that. And I would love to listen to a couple of your answers to some of our questions.
Oh, we got some
Do you
questions.
like that segue?
Okay, so these are just like very simple questions. They're just very like kind of icebreakers, even though I feel like we've already broke the ice. Okay.
We love doing it at the end, though.
Yeah, we do it at the end. First question is, if you could be any animal, in which animal would you be and why?
Oh my gosh, I already know this answer. I know they don't exist, but this is me, a phoenix.
That's awesome.
Because Harry Potter's real.
Okay,
We
thank
talked
you.
about
No, yeah. We already said
about this, it's
sister.
That
Don't
was
do
step
this to me.
one.
A phoenix. A
A
phoenix.
phoenix.
They say the highest evolved form of a Scorpio is a phoenix.
No way.
Oh, I
And
love
I'm not
that.
gonna lie, I like to get my cards read, and every time I've gotten it read, they're like, they keep pulling out the Phoenix,
Phoenix?
card, and I'm like, bitch, I'm evolved, but I just need to learn to listen.
I gotta figure this out step by step.
I love that. Phoenix, such a good answer.
Second question is, if you can only have one food for the rest of your life,
Yeah.
what would it be?
And why?
Okay.
Well, not why. We don't need
Sure.
to know why.
But I would. Okay, so here's the thing. I don't eat meat anymore because I've been trying not to, and it's just, I don't know why. I just haven't been gravitating towards it. However, if this is my magical world and I can get to be whatever animal and eat whatever I want,
Totally.
tacos for
Oh,
sure.
girl,
Yeah.
you-
I saw that tacos.
Can
Oh
I
my
just
God.
tell you, when you talked about the taco stand in Hentified, I was like, oh my gosh, tacos.
Literally.
I was
My
like,
stomach started turning too.
I'm
I was
like, I'm
thinking,
so hungry. Okay, great. Number 3, if you could have any superpower, or if you can be any superpower or superhero,
what would it be and why?
Damn.
are you just adding all the Y's to this?
Yeah.
I was like,
I mean, I've just a superpower. That's crazy. So like my ego is telling me like I want to be able to like read someone's mind, but
But
that's
girl,
just
you
like
don't.
real intrusive. Yeah, I don't intrusive. I don't want that. You're right.
I feel like I would be constantly stressed out. I'd be like, she thought that?
And people have so many fleeting thoughts that it's
Oh my
like,
God.
that would mess with your head.
Shit, I think about all the things that I think. I'm like,
Oh, girl.
Yeah.
Actually, no, I didn't really mean that thought.
Exactly.
okay, I want to be able to fly, and what is it where you get to teleport? Like you can
Teleport.
just,
Teleport.
Yeah.
Yes,
those
that's
a
two.
good
That's
one.
it.
Celebrity
choice.
crush.
Ooh, yo, this is weird. I don't really have one, but the only one that comes to mind, and everybody thinks this is so weird, Paul Rudd.
Girl, Bill Hader. Don't even ask me. I think I like, it's so funny because everybody's like, what? Like I have friends that are like, girl, like Chris Hemsworth or whatever his name is.
I've never
Thor.
That to me, I'm such I'm such an intellectual. Like if I cannot like think we can have a good conversation and like you're fun, I'm like, nah, it's boring. I don't want to just kiss you. Like that's whack. And but Paul Rudd just seems like I could invite him to the cookout and he'd be so much fun.
He'd be so chill. Oh, yeah. I know. I watched Trainwreck and then Bill Hader. I fell in love with his character in the movie. Oh my! I just thought he was just such a nice guy, and I'm clearly I have like this nice guy that I married. I love him so much. Thanks, so yeah, and he makes me laugh so much too. And so I think that
yeah, I totally feel that.
So okay, and then last one, if you were not in the entertainment industry, what could you see yourself doing if it wasn't this? Even though I know it chose you, but like if it was something that you wanted to,
I would be a therapist.
Nice.
Awesome.
Yeah,
that's awesome.
Yeah, for children and family.
Awesome.
Without a doubt. I mean, I think that's something that I want to like, I've been thinking about going back to school for anyway.
It's funny because when I was in college, I wanted to be an MFT.
Yep.
I
What's
was like
MFT?
marriage and family therapist.
Oh, gotcha.
Because I went through like, I want to be a pediatrician and doctor. I was like,
I did too.
I was like, actually, I don't like blood and I don't like germs. So actually,
I can't either. Oh my God, I see blood down. I'm like,
yeah, exactly. So I'm like, my mom's like, you're not gonna do that, Nadia. You can't even like get a needle near you before you're. Which is when I got to like my tattoo. She was like, I can't believe like you can't even look at a needle, but you went and got a tattoo. I'm like, okay, just stop.
Like I am.
Yeah, all right, we're done.
And a bonus question. I know we said 5, but I got one. If you were listening to this, and you're not in the industry, but you want to be.
Yeah.
What kind of advice would you either give yourself or that person who's listening?
Figure out why you want to do it. Figure out your why and figure out the specificity of what you want to do because there are so many different things you can do as an actor in this industry.
Yeah.
And get as connected to who you are first so that you don't try and conform to what you think they want you to be.
I love that.
Love that. That is such a wonderful way for us to cap out today. Get in touch with yourself, right?
Annie, is there anything that you would like to plug? Where can people find you, follow you?
You can find me on Instagram, Annie, ANNIE, GGONZALEZ. I post a lot of things on there about mental health and what I'm doing. So come follow me and check it out.
Yeah, man. Give her a follow. Give her a holla.
We'll do that. We'll attach your link in the show notes. All you have to do, listening to my voice, is swipe up on your app and you will be able to click directly and give her a follow and let her know that you heard her from us.
Yes, you guys. Thank you so much for coming. This was such an amazing conversation. I feel like we could have talked for 2 hours.
Yes.
And we're going to have to. We're going to have to bring you back because it was such a good talk. Thank you so much for coming, enjoying our space, our home.
Yes.
And until next time, babe, we did it again.
We did it again.
Until next week.